歉。 straight down, make a left. Das kommt schon, ne?
Amigo, realmente.
Direkt na nas z połową jechać. Abrirden başka aslında.
This is the secondary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters.
I'll take it out.
Well, that's just
Ariana, Ariana. Eso. 也能接的。
Hey, one last thing. And I want everyone's eyes on me when I say this. Look at me.
Can I, Excellencies, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, can I invite you all, please, to take your seats? Gavel again. I declare open the 2023 High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, convened under the auspices of the General Assembly, SDG Summit, and I call to order the first plenary meeting. Heads of state and government, Secretary General, President of the Social and Economic Council, Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. I am honored to welcome you all to the SDG Summit at this critical juncture. As representatives are aware, this forum is held pursuant to General Assembly Resolutions 67/290 of 9th July 2013 and 75/290B of 25th June 2021. Before proceeding further, I first invite the forum to turn to the consideration of Agenda Item 2 and the consideration of its provisional agenda as contained in Document A/HLPF/2023/1. May I take it that the forum wishes to adopt the agenda as contained in Document A/HLPF/2023/1? I see no objection. It is so decided. I recall that pursuant to General Assembly Resolution 67/290, the meetings of the forum convened under the auspices of the General Assembly shall operate under the rules of procedure of the main committees of the Assembly. I should now like to draw to the attention of representatives Agenda Item 3 concerning election of officers other than the chair. In accordance with paragraph 6C of General Assembly Resolution 67/290, the meetings of the forum under the auspices of the Assembly will be chaired by its president. May I take it that the forum decides to elect the 21 vice chairs of the General Assembly at its 78th session as vice chairs of the forum? I see no objection. It is so decided. I further draw the attention of the forum to the letter of the President of the General Assembly at its 77th session, dated 17th July 2023, by which participating states were invited to express the interest of their head of state or government to serve as a co-moderator for a leaders' dialogue. In this connection, I am pleased to inform the forum that I have appointed as co-moderators for Leaders Dialogue 1, Her Excellency Katalin Novak, President of Hungary, and His Excellency Kasim Jomart Tokayev, President of the Republic of Kazakhstan. For Leaders Dialogue 2, His Excellency Andrzej Duda, President of the Republic of Poland, and His Excellency Philip J. Pierre, Prime Minister of St. Lucia. For Leaders Dialogue 3, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, and Her Excellency Natasha Perk Musar, President of the Republic of Slovenia. For Leaders Dialogue 4, His Excellency Mark Brown, Prime Minister of the Cook Islands, and Her Excellency Mette Frederiksen, Prime Minister of Denmark. For Leaders Dialogue 5, Her Excellency Katrin Jakobsdottir, Prime Minister of Iceland, and His Excellency Philip Jacinto Nyusi, President of the Republic of Mozambique. And for Leaders Dialogue 6, His Excellency Macky Sall, President of the Republic of Senegal, and His Excellency Ulf Kristersson, Prime Minister of Sweden. I thank them for taking on this important role and wish all participants every success in the deliberations. In accordance with the program of work, Leaders Dialogue 1 will begin at 10:30 a.m. in the Trusteeship Council chamber. There will be a short overlap with the plenary meeting so that all group statements can be heard. Allow me now to deliver my opening statement from the rostrum. Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Ms. Paula Narvaez, President of the Economic and Social Council, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and guests. It is an honor to welcome you to the 2023 High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, the SDG Summit. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, adopted unanimously by all United Nations member states in 2015, constitutes a global call to action to banish poverty from our societies, protect and preserve our planet, and to ensure prosperity for all. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals serve as a beacon of hope and a roadmap for common action to create a more equitable, more just, and more sustainable world. Now, at the midway point, it is essential that we take stock of our progress and assess the remaining challenges that confront us. Such assessment is a necessary basis for charting a course of success to ensure that we, the United Nations, keep faith with the bold undertaking we gave to the world in 2015, that no one is left behind. Today's summit therefore provides a unique platform for us to recommit to the 2030 agenda. I therefore encourage you to use this opportunity for peer learning, to share your experiences, forge partnerships, and put forth innovative ideas that can help drive meaningful change. However, let us be clear, Excellencies. A combination of factors, including the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, impacts of climate change, and the war in Ukraine, have presented a series of complex and intersecting crises. And while this has dramatically altered the trajectory of the entire world, it is, as is too often the case, those in the most precarious circumstances who are already most vulnerable suffer the most. This includes countries in special situations, small island developing states, least developed countries, and landlocked developing countries. The most vulnerable in our communities, including women and girls, young people, persons with disabilities, older persons, and indigenous people, have not been spared and are at the foremost receiving end of these crises. Despite commitments to eradicate poverty and to reduce hunger being at the core of this agenda, alarming 1.2 billion people were still living in multidimensional poverty as of 2022. It is estimated that approximately 8% of global population, or 680 million people, will still be facing hunger in 2030. Can we accept these numbers? Or, because they make us uncomfortable, should we pretend they do not exist and carry on with business as usual? Surely we cannot. To do so would amount to being reckless. Rather, we must do more to lift people sustainably out of poverty and hunger, not merely because it is the right thing to do in the name of humanity, but also because to do nothing would be to fan the flames of discord and conflict with well-known terrible consequences. Excellencies, while there have been setbacks, we cannot relent in our resolve and determination to do our utmost to rescue the SDGs, as we have been challenged by the Secretary General. The fact that we are lagging in our promise cannot be the death knell of our blueprint, nor should this summit be a forum to point fingers, apportion blame, and certainly not to accept defeat. Instead, bold and transformative actions must be prioritized to support the well-being of our global constituents, particularly those left farthest behind. This is our moment to rededicate ourselves to the SDGs and to reinvigorate progress across the entirety of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The 2023 Global Sustainable Development Report outlines clear steps in that regard. It recommends an ambitious SDG push scenario to improve social protection, strengthen governance, promote a green economy, and address digital disruption, while improving access to quality education and healthcare in a human rights setting. With concerted, ambitious action, it is still possible that by 2030, we could lift 124 million additional people out of poverty and ensure that some 113 million fewer people are malnourished. Such achievements would also generate gains across the other goals related to health, nutrition, and education. Adequate investment in the SDGs is therefore a win-win for all, with cross-cutting and knock-on benefits reverberating across the globe, positively impacting every society and every community. Excellencies, I urge you to make this strategic investment in the SDGs through effective domestic resource mobilization, accompanied by fulfillment of the targets set for the inflow of official development assistance and productive partnerships with the private sector. we must reform the international financial architecture to promote affordable, stable, long-term financing for sustainable development across the global south, where development has been in perpetual deficit. The Financing for Development Dialogue and the Summit of Future are both key opportunities to continue pushing this reform agenda, bearing in mind the urgent need to address the worsening gap for financing the SDGs. Excellencies, by delivering meaningful change to the lives of so many, we can demonstrate that the UN not only hears the demands of those in difficult situations, but more importantly, that these needs will not go unmet. Renewed faith in us by the many who depend on us will help to restore our credibility, trust, and ultimately a sense of confidence that UN-led multilateralism delivers. We must remember the world is watching. Our 8 billion constituents are looking to us for a signal that we will keep our promises and that we are alive to the reality that we have only 7 years left before 2030. They want and deserve full reassurance that we altogether recognize the circumstantial setbacks that so many have experienced and continue to endure, and that we stand ready to support them in their time of acute need. And most importantly, that we see the heightened sense of urgency, and we are all prepared as world leaders gather here today to raise our ambition and recommit to meaningfully delivering the 2030 Agenda and its 17 SDGs. With that in mind, I challenge you all to demonstrate emboldened leadership by using this summit to announce groundbreaking commitments to support and to complete the 2030 Agenda. I call for your support to the political declaration, negotiations for which were skillfully led by Qatar and Ireland, to whom I extend my grateful thanks and that of the membership. I sincerely believe that the declaration represents the most ideal common denominator for the overwhelming majority of members. Adoption of a strong declaration at this summit will herald the start of a new phase of accelerated progress to achieve the SDGs by 2030. As we navigate the challenges ahead, the SDGs will remain a true blueprint for humanity and will continue to be our guideposts to deliver peace, prosperity, progress, and sustainability for all peoples everywhere. As the late former Secretary General Kofi Annan once said, we must work tirelessly to achieve a better world that is free from fear and free from want. I thank you. It is now my honor to invite His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, to deliver a statement.
Mr. President of the General Assembly, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. 8 years ago, member states gathered in the hall to adopt the Sustainable Development Goals. With the world watching, including 193 young people in the balcony holding blue lamps of hope, you made a solemn promise. A promise to build a world of health, progress, and opportunity for all. A promise to leave no one behind. And a promise to pay for it. This was not a promise made to one another as diplomats from the comfort of this chamber. It was always a promise to people. People crushed under the grinding wheels of poverty. People starving in a world of plenty. Children denied a seat in a classroom. Families fleeing conflict, seeking a better life. Parents watching helplessly as their children die of preventable disease. People losing hope because they can't find a job or a safety net when they need it. Entire communities literally on devastation's doorstep because of changing climate. So the SDGs aren't just a list of goals. They carry the hopes, dreams, rights, and expectations of people everywhere. And they provide the surest path to living up to our obligations under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, now in its 75th year. Yet today, only 15% of the targets are on track, and many are going in reverse. Instead of leaving no one behind, we risk leaving the SDGs behind. So, Excellencies, the SDGs need a global rescue plan. And I'm deeply encouraged by the detailed and wide-ranging draft political declaration under consideration here today, especially its commitment to improving developing countries' access to the fuel required for SDG progress, finance. This includes clear support for an SDG stimulus of at least $500 billion a year, as well as an effective debt relief mechanism that supports payment suspensions, longer lending terms, and lower rates. It includes a call to recapitalize and change the business model of multilateral development banks so they can massively leverage private finance at affordable rates to benefit developing countries. And it includes the endorsement of the need to reform the international financial architecture that I consider outdated, dysfunctional, and unfair. This can be a game changer in accelerating SDG progress. I have been calling for a new Bretton Woods moment and the development of practical solutions by the Summit of the Future next September. But countries can act right now to get the SDGs on track. Together with businesses and financial institutions, local authorities, the UN development system, and more, you have helped point the way with high-impact initiatives to support 6 targeted areas where urgent transitions are needed. First, we must take action on hunger. In our world of plenty, hunger is a shocking stain on humanity and an epic human rights violation. It is an indictment of every one of us that millions of people are starving in this day and age. Building on July's Food Systems Summit stocktake, we are marshalling finance, science, data, innovations, and policy and governance support to help countries transform food systems so all people can access a healthy and nutritious diet. Second, the transition to renewable energy isn't happening fast enough. We are putting forward new energy compacts in which government, businesses, and global organizations join forces to invest in decarbonizing energy systems and ensuring a just and equitable transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. Third, the benefits and opportunities of digitalization are not being spread widely enough. To close the divide, we have launched an initiative to spur digital transformation across 100 countries, supporting stronger technology capacities, better governance, and innovative financing. Our proposed Global Digital Compact will also help countries build safe digital systems that provide internet access for all, including students in hard-to-reach communities. Quatrièmement, trop d'enfants et de jeunes pâtissent d'une éducation de mauvaise qualité ou ne reçoivent aucune éducation. Nous devons bâtir de véritables sociétés apprenantes, ancrées dans une éducation de qualité et notamment sur la formation continue dès le plus jeune âge et tout au long de la vie, réduisant la fracture numérique et soutenant les enseignants à chaque étape. Un groupe émergent de pays pionniers montre la voie pour stimuler les investissements et transformer les systèmes éducatifs du monde entier. Cinquièmement, chaque personne a besoin d'un travail décent et d'une protection sociale. Grâce à la collaboration avec les gouvernements et le secteur privé, notre accélérateur mondial pour l'emploi et la protection sociale pour des transitions justes vise à créer 400 millions de nouveaux emplois décents, en particulier dans l'économie verte, les services à la personne et l'économie numérique, ainsi qu'à étendre la protection sociale à plus de 4 milliards de personnes. Les investissements dans la protection sociale doivent massivement augmenter. Sixièmement, la guerre menée contre la nature doit cesser. Nous devons mettre fin à la triple crise planétaire du changement climatique, de la pollution et de la perte de biodiversité. Nous mettons sur pied un groupe de pays champions qui étudiera les mesures à prendre pour réformer les politiques économiques et placer la nature et la biodiversité au cœur de toute décision. Le besoin d'assurer une égalité totale entre les hommes et les femmes est au cœur de toutes ces transitions. Il est grand temps de mettre fin à la discrimination, de garantir la pleine participation des femmes et des filles à la prise de décision et de mettre fin au fléau des violences fondées sur le genre. Excellences, à mi-parcours de l'échéance pour la réalisation des objectifs de développement durable, les yeux du monde sont de nouveau rivés sur vous. Au cours du week-end, des jeunes et des groupes de la société civile se sont rendus à l'ONU ou défilés à travers le monde pour réclamer une action urgente. L'heure est venue de prouver que vous êtes à leur écoute. Nous pouvons réussir si nous agissons maintenant, si nous agissons ensemble, si nous tenons notre promesse envers les milliards de personnes dont les espoirs, les rêves et l'avenir sont entre vos mains. L'heure est venue et je vous remercie.
I thank the Secretary General for his statement. I now invite Her Excellency Paola Narvaez, President of the 2024 session of the Economic and Social Council, to deliver a statement.
Señor Presidente de la Asamblea General, señor Secretario General, distinguidas jefas y jefes de Estado y de Gobierno, Excelencias, distinguidas delegadas y delegados, señoras y señores. A mitad de camino en la implementación de la Agenda 2030, como sabemos, hemos dejado de avanzar y en muchos casos estamos retrocediendo en el cumplimiento de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. El planeta sigue devastado por los efectos del cambio climático. Las catástrofes cada vez más frecuentes y graves dificultan la recuperación de todos, especialmente de las personas y los países vulnerables. Mientras tanto, a la arquitectura financiera internacional le está costando hacer frente a la crisis actual y adaptarse a ella. Los países que ya se encontraban en situación de sobreendeudamiento se han visto aún más afectados a causa de los costos económicos y financieros que deben enfrentar para recuperarse de la pandemia y hacer frente a los desastres climáticos. La brecha digital cada vez mayor agudiza las desigualdades y específicamente la desigualdad de género sigue minando los progresos. La consecución de la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de todas las mujeres y las niñas es contribución decisiva para el progreso de todos los objetivos y metas de la Agenda 2030. Las mujeres y las niñas deben tener igual acceso a una educación de calidad, a los recursos económicos y a la participación política, así como a las mismas oportunidades en el empleo, el liderazgo y la adopción de decisiones a todos los niveles. Nos enfrentamos a múltiples crisis que dificultan aún más el desarrollo sostenible. Sin embargo, debemos dar espacio a las voluntades y compromisos, también con optimismo, para implementar las acciones, para avanzar en la consecución de los ODS y reforzar nuestra determinación colectiva de trabajar por los ideales que el desarrollo sostenible ofrece a nuestros pueblos y nuestro planeta. Hoy es un día para que todos nos volvamos a comprometer. La declaración política es un testimonio del compromiso inquebrantable de nuestros líderes con la implementación eficaz de la Agenda 2030 y sus ODS y la defensa de todos los principios consagrados en ella. Reconoce nuestra necesidad colectiva de adoptar medidas inmediatas con respecto a los 17 objetivos. Esperamos con interés su adopción para guiar nuestros esfuerzos de implementación en los próximos años. Al mismo tiempo, el diálogo de alto nivel sobre la financiación para el desarrollo se centrará en la necesidad de contar con una arquitectura financiera internacional que pueda responder tanto a nuestras necesidades actuales como a los retos que se vislumbran en el horizonte. Por último, la cumbre sobre la ambición climática brinda la oportunidad de lograr avances significativos en la acción para el clima y realizar esfuerzos más oportunos y específicos. Esta semana debería marcar un punto de inflexión para rescatar los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. No podemos dejar que se nos escape esta oportunidad. Como presidenta del Consejo Económico y Social, me comprometo a utilizar el periodo de sesiones de 2024 para aprovechar los resultados de la cumbre sobre los ODS, así como de las demás reuniones de alto nivel que se celebran esta semana. El Consejo Económico y Social, con sus diversos segmentos, foros y órganos subsidiarios, está listo para apoyar los esfuerzos de los países para convertir los compromisos en acciones para hacer realidad la Agenda 2030 para el desarrollo sostenible. El objetivo del Consejo será proporcionar una orientación de políticas transformadoras, reforzando al mismo tiempo su papel como plataforma de rendición de cuentas para que el apoyo del sistema de las Naciones Unidas para el desarrollo sea mejor y más rápido. En definitiva, todos debemos asumir un compromiso pleno, un diálogo constructivo y elevar nuestras ambiciones, contando con la importante participación y visión de la sociedad civil y otras partes interesadas. Solo así podremos asegurarnos de que se produzcan las transformaciones necesarias. La fuerza del multilateralismo puede ayudarnos a encontrar formas de cooperar en estos tiempos de crisis. Espero, con mucho interés, conocer las ideas innovadoras y los compromisos de acción que presentarán en los próximos días. Con responsable entusiasmo, agradezco formar parte de la transformación que hará del desarrollo sostenible no solo nuestro objetivo, sino nuestra realidad. Muchas gracias.
I thank the President of the Economic and Social Council for his statement. The forum will now consider Agenda Item 4, entitled Adoption of the Political Declaration of the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. The forum has before it document A/HLPF/2023/L1, containing a draft resolution entitled political declaration of the high-level political forum on sustainable development convened under the auspices of the General Assembly. Before proceeding to action, I wish to recall that, in accordance with paragraph 6D of General Assembly Resolution 67/290, the meetings of the forum shall result in a concise, negotiated political declaration to be submitted for the consideration of the Assembly. I would like to thank all states for their constructive participation in the complex negotiations on the draft political declaration. The forum shall now proceed to consider draft resolution A/HLPF/2023/L1. The forum will now take a decision on draft resolution A/HLPF/2023/L1 entitled Political Declaration of the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development convened under the auspices of the General Assembly. May I take it that the forum wishes to adopt the draft political declaration contained in document A/HLPF/2023/L1, which, pursuant to General Assembly Resolution 67/290, I will then submit for the formal consideration of the Assembly. I hear no objection. The draft political declaration is adopted. Pursuant to Assembly Resolution 67/290, I will submit the political declaration just adopted for the consideration of the Assembly. I thank the co-facilitators of the draft political declaration, His Excellency Fergal Mythen, Permanent Representative of Ireland to the United Nations, and Her Excellency Alia Ahmed Saif Al Thani, Permanent Representative of the State of Qatar to the United Nations, for conducting open, transparent, and inclusive consultations and their steadfast stewardship of the process. I also wish to thank my predecessor, the President of the General Assembly, at its 77th session, His Excellency Chaba Korosi, for his hard and insightful work on the political declaration. I now invite His Excellency Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdullah Rahman bin Jassim Al Thani, Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar, to make a statement.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سعادة السيد دينيس فرانسيس رئيس الدورة 78 للجمعية العامة، سعادة السيد أنطونيو غوتيريش الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة، الحضور الكرام، يسعدني المشاركة في الجلسة الافتتاحية لقمة أهداف التنمية المستدامة، والتي تمثل فرصة سانحة لإعادة إحياء الأمل نحو تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة لعام 2030. وأود أن أرحب باعتماد الإعلان السياسي للقمة، ويسرني أنه قد عهدت إلى سعادة الشيخة علي آل ثاني المندوب الدائم لدولة قطر لدى الأمم المتحدة مسؤولية تيسير المفاوضات الحكومية بشأن الإعلان السياسي، إلى جانب سعادة المندوب الدائم لجمهورية إيرلندا لدى الأمم المتحدة. نجتمع هنا اليوم ونحن نمر في مرحلة بالغة الأهمية من تنفيذ أهداف التنمية المستدامة، ويجمعنا هدف مشترك وهو التصدي للتحديات الأكثر إلحاحاً التي تواجه شعوب العالم من نزاعات مسلحة وأزمات مرتبطة بالأمن الغذائي وتغير المناخ. وغني عن القول أن الالتزام بحل الخلافات بالطرق السلمية والحوار القائم على الاحترام هي السبل المثلى نحو ضمان الحفاظ على مكتسبات التنمية حول العالم. لذا ينبغي لنا أن نعطي الأولوية لتنفيذ تدابير وإجراءات فعالة وفقا للقانون الدولي تزيل الصعوبات التي تعوق الحق في تقرير المصير لمن يعيشون تحت الاحتلال الأجنبي وعلى رأسهم الشعب الفلسطيني الشقيق. كما أنه من المهم تجنب أي إجراءات قد تقوض من قدرات الدول النامية على تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة، بما في ذلك فرض تدابير قسرية على نحو يتنافى مع ميثاق الأمم المتحدة ومبادئ القانون الدولي. السيد الرئيس، يجدر بنا في هذه المناسبة التأكيد على أن الاستثمار في مستقبل شبابنا هو مهمة تقع على عاتقنا جميعا، ومن خلال تثمين آراء الشباب وتمكين النساء والفتيات وإشراكهم في عمليات صنع القرار يمكننا بناء مجتمعات أكثر شمولية واستدامة. إن الدور الحيوي الذي تقوم به دولة قطر في مجال التنمية عالميا وتحديدا في قطاع التعليم يعزز رؤية الدولة في التنمية البشرية، ونحن ملتزمون بدعم تنفيذ برنامج عمل الدوحة لصالح أقل البلدان نموا إدراكا منا للتحديات التي تواجهها تلك البلدان. وما تزال دولة قطر ملتزمة بموائمة خططها الإنمائية الوطنية مع مبادئ أهداف التنمية المستدامة، فقد جعلت قطر تغير المناخ أولوية القصوى واتخذت تدابير هامة لتطوير التقنيات المتصلة به. سيد الرئيس، في الختام نذكر بأن الطريق نحو بناء عالم جديد أكثر أمانا وعدلا وحرية يكمن في تحقيق التضامن الإنساني الدولي معا. يمكننا تحويل التزاماتنا إلى أفعال وجعل خطة عام 2030 حقيقة واقعة، وشكرا لكم.
I thank the Prime Minister and the Minister for Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar for his statement. I next invite His Excellency Leo Varadkar, Taoiseach of Ireland, to make a statement.
President of the General Assembly, Heads of State and Government, Secretary General, Excellencies, dear friends. As we stand here together, halfway to the deadline of 2030, there's no hiding the fact that we're not where we would wish to be. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals are an urgent and universal call to action to end poverty, to protect the planet, and to improve the lives and prospects of everyone, everywhere on our world. And yet at this midpoint, we know that only about 15% of our targets are being met. Yes, our efforts have been pushed off track by a global pandemic, by conflict, including Russia's invasion of Ukraine, by food and energy crises, and by the increasing pace and intensity of extreme weather events linked to climate change. But we should also acknowledge that progress had stalled before the pandemic arrived. As leaders, our drive to achieve the goals has not been as strong or as focused as it should have been. We've lost time, but I, for one, have not lost hope. Saying that we've not made as much progress as we should have is not the same as saying we haven't made any progress at all. As the 2023 SDG report says, more than 800 million people around the world have been connected to electricity since 2015. That's a huge number of people, greater than the entire population of Europe. 146 countries have already met or are on track to meeting the under 5 mortality target. And effective HIV treatment has halved global AIDS-related deaths since 2010. And as the Secretary-General said earlier this year, this progress shows that change is possible, that backsliding is not inevitable, that poverty, pollution, and gender inequality are not preordained. They are trends that can be reversed, problems that can be solved, tragedies that can be averted. But only if we act now with the urgency and unity that the situation demands. As the political declaration states, the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs represent our best hope for humanity and the planet. In it, we, the world's leaders, commit ourselves to bold, accelerated, just and transformative actions, anchored in international solidarity and effective cooperation to create a sustainable future for all. It must be more than a piece of paper that we adopt today. Rather, it is our responsibility as leaders to breathe life into it and to make it real. Mr. President, Ireland was proud to play a role in co-facilitating drafting of our declaration with Qatar. The negotiations were not easy because the stakes are so high and the implications for the world so profound. And on Ireland's behalf, I'm glad to reaffirm our unwavering commitment to the 2030 Agenda and to the achievement of all of our goals. We'll play our part in ensuring the world's poorest and most vulnerable are not forgotten or left behind. We're committed to providing official development assistance to the most vulnerable people in the world, and we've consistently increased our ODA in recent years against an increasingly difficult backdrop for international development budgets. Since the SDGs were adopted in 2015, official development assistance by Ireland has trebled when you include the assistance we're offering those fleeing the war in Ukraine. And we're committed to continuing this trend in the years ahead. We're on track to meet our pledge to provide at least $225 million annually in climate finance for developing countries within 2 years. And this year alone, we'll provide $149 million for climate finance. To deal with the scandalous food security and nutrition crisis globally, Ireland will provide almost $300 million towards food, agriculture and nutrition this year, and we do so recalling our own great famine of the 19th century. And we will increase this budget further next year. Mr. President, Ireland is a small country of only 5 million people, but we've always been part of the world and dared to think big. The challenge of achieving the sustainable development goals, is undoubtedly an enormous one. But with effort and persistence, we can and will succeed. Thank you very much.
I thank the Taoiseach of Ireland for his statement. I now invite the forum to view a video presentation on the stakeholder engagement in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
Dear friends, this week, this weekend, this house, the United Nations, also belongs to you.
It's possible when we act.
With urgency.
For everyone, everywhere.
Decisions have to be taken now. Our planet, our society, peace, partnerships cannot wait.
As an entrepreneur, it is extremely challenging to access capital, especially if you're women and especially if you're youth.
People are asking tough questions. The young people were like, we are not here for just talking points. We are here for solutions. We are here for accountability. You say you will do this, but who will hold you accountable?
What we need now is for global leaders to act more, to really scale up what civil society can do to ensure that civic space is not closing and that our expertise are being centered in all decision making.
We have to ensure by 2030 that women, girls, LGBTI populations live safely, equally throughout the world,
We need more faith from policymakers and from financial institutions that we can do it.
You need to see young people as not just beneficiaries, but as equal partners.
It's possible when we fight against poverty. It's possible to achieve climate justice when people affected are present in decision-making areas.
If we scale the digital solutions that are already out there.
When we respect all human rights.
Let there be, let there be.
Fossil fuels have got to go. If we don't act together, we are just going to destroy the planet and ourselves.
80% of the world's biodiversity is in indigenous peoples' territories. If we are able to get our rights respected and protected, then we can contribute.
It's possible when we all feel responsible. I do.
When we include young people at the table.
When we all think globally, but act locally.
It's possible when you don't leave me behind.
It is possible when we act, when you act.
When you act, you act.
When you act. With urgency.
For everyone, everywhere.
I now invite the youth representative, Ms. Mayada Adil from Sudan, young leader for the SDGs, to make a statement.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today, I stand here not only as Mayada Adil, but also as a young Sudanese woman and activist, carrying the power of my people with me. I'm one of the 17 young leaders for SDGs recognized by United Nations. We just came from the SDG Action Weekend, where youth, women, civil society, private sector, science and academia, and local government had shown we are ready and willing to take action rather than promises from you. As we mark the midpoint of the 2030 agenda, I have to remind you that if only 15% of the Sustainable Development Goals are met, that is a failure. We are facing a dire reality: the climate crisis, persisting hunger, growing inequality, and multiple conflicts plaguing our world. So, as we gather to recommit the SDGs and ignite actions, I invite you to look in this room and to look around you and tell me, what do you see? I tell you what I see. I see a hall filled with head of states, decision makers, and power holders. But I do not see my tribe, the youth tribe, the one who've been left behind. Every year, you invite a different young person to this stage to remind you of your commitment to humanity. Last year, there were young people from Afghanistan, Ukraine, Uganda, Pakistan, Nigeria, and Argentina. Today, it's only me standing in front of you, and I have a big shoes to fill as I remind you again of the many promises that you have made and to keep you accountable for the actions and inactions. Therefore, I will ask you, what have you done to include young people in decision-making space? Half of the world population is under 30, yet we are excluded, sidelined from all decision-making spaces. less than 3% of the members of the parliament are under 30, and less than 1% if we speak about young women only. Once we stop making excuses and curating roadblocks for the young people to co-lead, real transformational change will happen, and I can assure you that. But not as tokenism, through genuine intergenerational partnership and solidarity. We need young people in all our diversity to be seen, to be heard in the policy and decision making. What have you done to Afghan women and girls? Last year, in the same stage, a young Afghan woman highlighted the ongoing crisis in her country. At the time, women or girls were banned from schools. Many hearts were touched, and promises were made. But since then, the situation had only got worse. Now women or girls are banned from basic education, attending university, and participating in public life in general. You have not done enough to solve this crisis and put pressure on the people who are responsible. So I stand here in solidarity with my sisters, the Afghan sisters. What have you done to make the international system more inclusive and responsive? In this case, I'm talking about Sudan, my country. We have witnessed the global humanitarian financial system focusing its aid towards the global north, leaving the global south facing hunger, droughts, climate crisis, and increased conflicts and wars. Sudan is left out of your side. I wonder why. Today's generation of young people is around 1.9 billion strong, but millions of us are frankly being left behind. As we speak, 1 in every 5 young people worldwide, not in education or employment or trainings. 68 million young people are looking for jobs. All over the world, millions of young people are unable to access social protection coverage. Mental health problems like depression and anxiety are a serious concern for young people. And if you do not deliver on your commitments to keeping the global emission below 1.5 degrees, reversing the damages of the climate change, and working on carbon-free alternative, you are putting the lives and the future of our entire generation and those who will come at risk. Young people of the world, demanding you, the leaders of the world, to fulfill your obligations towards peace and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And we are ready to work with you as a full-fledged partners to make it reality. Thank you so much.
I thank Ms. Adil for her statement. I now invite the forum to hold a setting the stage discussion on SDG implementation at the halftime. What will it take to keep the SDG promise? I am pleased to welcome the distinguished panelists and invite them to assume their seats on the podium. The panelists are Her Excellency Mia Amor Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados and co-chair of the Sustainable Development Goals Advocates Group. Mr. Ajay Banga, President of the World Bank Group, and Ms. Caroline Corsi, Mayor of Montevideo. Furthermore, I am pleased to welcome the moderator, Ms. Gillian Tett of the Financial Times. Following the setting the stage segment, we will hear a musical performance by Senegalese musician Mr. Baba Mal, UN Goodwill Ambassador for the UN Convention to Combat Desertification. I now invite Ms. Tett to conduct the discussion.
Well, thank you very much indeed, President, for convening this. And on behalf of the Financial Times, I am delighted to be here for this very important meeting. Now, if the SDGs were a game of soccer or football, which is something that unites the world, a love of soccer, right now at half-time, we would all be feeling pretty depressed. Because as we've heard earlier, only 15% of the goals have been met, and that is not a good record. But the great thing about soccer is that it can always change in the second half. So what today is all about is trying to see whether we can actually find ways to change the game in the second half. Let's hope we can, otherwise the crowd are going to truly start booing. So we have an amazing combination of people here to talk about this. We are short of time, so we are going to be very focused and brief. But I'd like to start with you, Mia Motley. One of the key elements of changing the game is getting the finance needed to actually implement the SDGs. You have been a tireless thorn in the side of the rich countries and the international financial architecture calling for change. What, in your view, would count as success from this week in terms of getting the international financial architecture changed?
I think we have to, first of all, thank you for having us here. I think we have to recognize that the calls for international reform of the financial system really are not just about governance, but they're for us about longer money, cheaper money, and being able to use it for the purposes for which we need to reduce all of our inequalities and to achieve the elements of the SDGs. Ajay is better placed to speak to it, but I'm hoping that we can have a joint effort between the World Bank, the IMF in particular, and the UN to be able to bring to the table the credit rating agencies and the markets, because regrettably we value short-term lending, but do not understand that if countries are going to invest in education and healthcare, they need 30 and 40-year money in order to be able to do so. Our situation has been compounded by the pandemic, and therefore that long-term money is critical. Secondly, we need mission-oriented lending. Professor Mazzucato has been making this point, and in fact, in Barbados, we've set 6 missions, recognizing that all of our policies, including the terms and conditions for access to finance, have to reinforce the missions. If we believe that the SDGs are worth attaining, then we need to put a framework in place that allows the MDBs to value the SDGs and to be able to increase the length of time that you can have to repay for these funds. Thirdly, we need to ensure that as we do all of that, that we get countries and individuals to see the SDGs as individual targets. Because it is not only about the money that we access, it is also about the policies, it's also about the change of behavior, it's about the change of attitude. The reason why the Secretary General can speak about there being an abundance of food and people starving is because we choose not to act differently and we choose not to share with one another. So I believe that those 3 points are critical. Let us get the meetings with the credit rating agencies and the markets, and Ajay, I'd be interested in hearing your perspective on it, because you cannot continue to value short-term lending. You cannot continue to have metrics that don't support a move away from per capita GDP that is historic and tells us nothing about the country, while the vulnerability of the country increases exponentially.
Right, well, thank you very much indeed for those strong words. Very briefly, a one-word answer. Are you more encouraged than you were 3 months ago?
I believe that this man has scored a century in his first 100 days. and I say so as one who has been a major critic of the World Bank. I think that the course correction that he has brought has been critical, but I say to him, if we are running fast and the dog behind us is running faster than us, we'll still get bitten. So I hope that he recognizes now that pace and scope are still the order of the day. And in fairness, it's not him. It's us, the countries. He is simply the agent that is going to carry out our wishes. But at the end of the day, I want to make the point that we cannot have SDGs for the benefit of global public goods and not have a mechanism for financing global public goods. And I still believe that the World Bank is the best place to locate the financing of global public goods, but I accept that there may not be enough public money. And to that extent, how do we mobilize money that now goes in non-state actors, most of whose balance sheets, the major multinational corporations have balance sheets that dwarf and miniaturize the majority of countries in this room. So we have to find a way of them contributing to the financing of global public goods, and we also have to find a way of philanthropic capital financing global public goods. They want to do good, but it can't only be what they want, it has to be what the world needs.
Well, thank you. Well, we've had mixed sporting metaphors here. I think we should definitely make time for some applause and cheers here. We've had mixed sporting metaphors. I started with soccer. We then had cricket. Those of you who are not cricket fans, century means scoring 10 goals. Ajay Banga, you come from a land of cricket and, well, mostly cricket, some soccer too. How do you see the current situation? We've just heard from Mia Motley that you have changed the game. Would you agree?
Well, I think the first thing you've got to know is the last time I was with Mia on a stage, we were in a rock concert in Paris. So you guys don't compare to that experience, right? But all seriousness, I've spent 100 days in this job. I would like to tell you the 5 or 6 things I'm trying to work on, which go towards addressing some of the things that came up in the previous speeches, but also Mia's points. And the first thing that I'm trying to work on is to be clear on expanding the vision of the bank to not only focus on poverty and prosperity, although those are key to our future, but to recognize the intertwined nature of the challenges that we are facing with climate, with pandemics, with fragility, with war, with food insecurity, and recognize that you cannot solve one without having a holistic view of the total. And so the vision of the bank will be to end poverty in a world, in a livable planet. So the livable planet is very, very important. That's what allows us to address some of these issues. The second thing I'm focused on is to make sure that we are attacking on 5 dimensions. The first one is people, education, health, social distribution schemes. The second one is prosperity, jobs, economic growth, and the like, micro SMEs, financial inclusion. The third one is the planet, and we've talked a little bit about already, mitigation, adaptation, those topics. The fourth is physical infrastructure. We cannot say that we will solve for schools and healthcare, and we will do those, but we won't do planet, or we'll do the planet, and we won't do schools and healthcare. This either-or mentality will not work. And the fifth one is digital, which I think changes the game for all 4 of the first ones. And the final item is to measure progress, output, not input, in terms of empowerment of women, in terms of jobs for young people, in terms of carbon emissions avoided and the like. So I want to focus the bank on tangible outputs in these areas. The second is capital. We cannot do all this unless we are, first of all, sweating our existing balance sheet as much as we can. And there's a series of steps as part of the G20 capital adequacy framework that I won't bore you with. But let's assume that the governments who are now signing up to subscribe to those, if we all add up well across all the multilateral development banks, maybe we'll get to somewhere between 150 and 200 billion all put together over the next decade. My point is, this is important, but it does not solve for the magnitude of the challenges we face. That is Mia's point about requiring the partnerships with philanthropy and with the private sector. One little thing you should know about the magic of money coming into the capital at the World Bank is that for $1 we get, because we can leverage in the private markets with our AAA sovereign rating, we do actually create a multiplier effect that does not get created by just $1 for $1 that goes into a trust or a philanthropy. So we have the ability to leverage and multiply and do that in a way that does 10, 20, 30-year lending. But Mia's right. That's a proportion of our lending and that of others. We have to find a way to work to extend both the tenor and the pricing, concessional pricing and blended finance to enable a lot of the challenges we're dealing with to happen. If you've got a couple of minutes more for me, I want to cover 4 things. The first is debt. The world is awash in debt. Emerging markets are struggling with that debt. A few countries have been able to find their way through the restructuring process, as recently as Zambia. We have others who need that help. We need the creditors to get together to get this sorted out and work well. The IMF and the World Bank are working with the creditors, so are India and its presidency of the G20, but we really need a push on that topic. The second one is close to $1.5 trillion a year goes into subsidies, fuel and agriculture, which in many ways are impacting our environment in ways we didn't anticipate that to be when the subsidies were put into place. So that cost of that environment is another $6 trillion. That means $7 trillion a year is going into subsidies and the impact of subsidies. So when we talk about money not being available, I would tell you money is available. The question is, where is it right now? And can it be moved to the right causes while being socially responsible to people who benefit from some of those subsidies? I get it. We need a just transition in energy and elsewhere, but we need to address that point. The third point has to do with, can we find a way through all this to leverage up what we can do as a group and work together? My fear is this issue of either or, and I don't understand the either or. I think a large part of the evolution roadmap the bank was being discussed about had to do with IBRD. A lot of the countries who are not as well off are fearful that that is going to come at the cost of their money availability. Please know that is not the case. IDA is IDA, it is there. We need to replenish it. We need the developed world to be even more generous in the next round of IDA replenishment, but IDA is there for you. It will be there for you. IBRD, and which is where all the evolution framework discussion has happened, is very important as well to meet the needs of energy transition and the like. That's work still to be done. But let's focus on what we can control. Subsidies, we can control and work on debt. We should look at, somebody mentioned domestic resource mobilization in an earlier conversation, very important. These are all topics that make sense that we should tackle.
Well, thank you very much indeed for that very rousing call to arms and that long and very precise list of steps that need to be taken. I can see a lot of harmony between the two of you in terms of what you're calling for. I'd now like to turn to the Mayor of Montevideo, Carolina Cose, from Uruguay, and basically ask you, from the perspective of a mayor who is president of the mayors group around the world, none of these bold plans are going to be implemented without help of local governments. Can you share a few remarks about how you see the situation right now? And you'll be speaking in Spanish, so I'd urge people to get their interpretation if they need that.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias. Efectivamente, me parece muy valiosa las apreciaciones de la primer ministra de Barbados y del presidente del Banco Central, y sobre todo, ¿no? It's not working? Ok, continúo. Gracias. Sobre todo creo en la necesidad que marcan de apurarse, ¿no? Hay que apurarse porque los alcaldes del mundo, yo diría de todas las ciudades, cuando uno de nosotros ve un hermoso día de lluvia para estar abrigado en casa, ven la posibilidad de que las personas que viven, las miles, los cientos, los millones de personas que viven en asentamientos alrededor del mundo, tengan un día trágico. Por lo tanto, sí, creo que para lograr llegar a los ODS, sin duda, para cambiar la realidad es esencialmente local, y desde los gobiernos locales, desde las ciudades, se hace todos los días esfuerzos por cambiar esa realidad. Cuestiones que tienen que ver con la sanidad, con la igualdad de género, con combatir de alguna forma la pobreza, y por lo tanto sí, nosotros estamos día a día con la realidad. La gente tiene un contacto muy cercano con nosotros. Entiendo la necesidad enorme de un cambio cultural. Para combatir el cambio climático nosotros tenemos que responder con un cambio cultural. Y ese cambio cultural nos tiene que atravesar a todos, no solo a las personas a las que servimos, a nuestras poblaciones, sino también a los políticos, a los que tenemos responsabilidades. Y para ese cambio cultural creo que de las mejores herramientas que tenemos en la política es abrir la mayor participación posible a la ciudadanía. Yo no le puedo pedir un cambio cultural a una madre que recién tiene una vivienda nueva y cuya mayor preocupación es que cuando llueva a su hijo no le venga un ataque de pánico porque lo tiene que convencer de que esta vez la casa no se le va a llover. El cambio cultural lo tenemos que trabajar entre todas y todos con cuidado, como una madre que cuida a sus hijos, como una madre que los quiere. Por eso creo que es muy necesario el cambio cultural y que reaccionemos rápido, porque se trata de la vida de nuestro planeta. En la Unión Internacional de Ciudades y Gobiernos Locales tenemos un pacto basado en 3 ejes: cuidar a las personas, cuidar la democracia y cuidar el planeta. Yo creo que es un muy buen marco para que podamos actuar juntos y seamos más fuertes, porque en definitiva estamos hablando de cambiar la realidad y lograr un mundo mejor.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mayor Cossé. We appreciate that, reminding us about the importance of being in touch with populations, pushing for a cultural change in the way that decisions are made. Well, we've heard a lot of rousing comments. Thank you all very much indeed. I very much indeed hope that the second half of this soccer match, come cricket game, come SDG battle will be much more encouraging than the first half, because there is indeed so much at stake now. So I'd like to now hand back to the President and say once again, thank you all very much indeed, and best of luck in winning the second half. Thank you. Apologies. As moderator, I was slight confusion in my briefing notes. I'm now due to announce a musical performance of Baba Mal that will be setting the scene at the end and hopefully inspiring us to think great thoughts. So thank you.
原来好的益生菌真的可以帮助入睡。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌是国家认证 AB 克菲尔益生菌，含7种有身份证的专利活菌，能产生伽巴、色氨酸等助眠因子，难怪吃了更快入睡，也睡得更好。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌也是台湾市场上唯一添加克菲尔乳杆菌 M1 的产品。这是由台湾知名的大学季转，对季节敏感、调整体质的朋友，真的是一大福音。还有这支还添加被称为超级食物的羽衣甘蓝萃取物。不少研究都指出，十字花科蔬菜有助抗炎及防癌，像是羽衣甘蓝含有高量的叶黄素、贝塔胡萝卜素、维生素 K、维生素 C、叶酸等丰富营养素。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌专利制成，无塑化剂、无重金属、无人工添加物、无410项农药、无香料调味剂、无防腐剂、无色素，7大保证、7大认证，觉得好安心。每日克菲尔，时刻美好 ，Good Feel Feel Good， 快点购下单！太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌。